Seconded, obviously.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. I'll let the audience here and also the audience who might be at home know that we do have a couple of board members who are remote, but they are, hopefully we'll see their faces soon, but they have tuned in. And we are missing Mr. Panos, who won't be here tonight, and at the moment, Mr. Wollaston is not here. Next order of business is recognitions and acknowledgements. And tonight we have a couple of items. The first is has to do for the Windsor High School. I see Aaron Keeney's thing here that I'm art piece here, but I'll let Dr. Hill say a few words as well. Both Dr. Hill and Ayanna Taylor, on behalf of the board, selected, and I believe probably Dr. Parker as well, selected a piece. Dr. Hill?
Thank you, Mr. President. I actually would like them to go ahead and introduce them first, then I'll kind of branch off of that, unless you just want me to, because I might just kill everything they're going to say. And I don't want to do that.
So we'll let the art department of Windsor High School.
We have 2 of the 4 students with us.
We have 3 of the 4 students.
3.
Dispatch elders. Okay. I'm going to take a picture. I don't see a Gianna.
Yeah, Gianna's here.
Is she here? Oh,
She's outside.
Okay.
Yep.
Over here, over here.
I can't see anything.
Yep. She's right there.
Okay. First, I'm going to announce the Board of Ed purchase prize, which was Aaron Keeney. So for the Board of Education purchase prize, Vice President Ayanna Taylor selected the work Treehouse, a sculpture by Aaron Keeney. Treehouse represents a deep personal significance, becoming an exploration into Aaron's social experience and the process of growing up. It signifies one step in a long journey of growth, discovery, and acceptance. Aaron is attending University of Minnesota Twin Cities, majoring in fisheries, wildlife, and conservation biology. So congratulations.
This year, Dr. Hill selected 2 purchase prize winners for the Superintendent's Purchase Prize, Shay Williams and Aiden McGraw. Shay Williams' ceramic fountain entitled Holders of Life, with its 2 figures straining to support the all-knowing face, represent the sacrifices we must make to support a beautiful life. Shay would like their work to evoke a response, good or bad. They believe art should engage the viewer in feeling and acknowledging emotion. They are drawn to ceramics because they feel they can create their visions more directly, as opposed to 2D fields where ideas must be translated onto a flat surface. Shay hopes to continue working in ceramics while they pursue a career in art education. Aiden McGraw's sculpture, entitled Breaking Free, is a sculpture within his AP investigation, which focuses on the topic of freedom, restraints, and breaking free. A personal goal Aiden has is to make sure he acts in his own best interest at all times, with nothing weighing him down or taking away freedom. His selected work is one of many metaphors represented throughout the body of work. Aiden plans to attend a technical school to pursue a career as a lineman. Yay, Aiden and Shay.
And this year's Windsor High School Purchase Prize was Brianna Martinez. This year's Windsor High School Purchase Prize, selected by Mr. Parker, goes to Brianna Martinez for her scratchboard drawing titled Overthinking, a piece from her AP Art and Design sustained investigation of how can the use of symbolism be used to capture the essence of social anxiety. Brianna's work is intended to show the feelings of a figure dealing with these emotions that can happen on a day-to-day basis. Brianna will be studying criminal justice at Manchester Community College this fall.
Well, congratulations to our artists. So I just want to, now I can tell all the truth, right? I was stuck between the 3 that are picked, the 3 being the Treehouse. So Vice President Taylor was so kind as to pick my other pick. I thought Aaron, actually, I said it'll look a little fixed if I picked the artwork from the valedictorian. So I said, you should pick. He said, I do like it, so you should get it. Mm-hmm. The fountain, I actually make fountains. This is something I like to do. But this one caught my attention. I didn't know if it was intentional or not, but I was like, does this fountain have a perpetual runny nose? And I feel that way with my allergies going on. So looking at it, I kept walking by it and coming back to it. I was like, I want the fountain with the runny nose. That's pretty cool. So I love the work that's done there. And as it was stated, art is the art, the one beholding decides what he or she thinks that is. Mm-hmm. And the runny nose works for me. So I like that. And then the breaking free just caught me immediately when I saw it. I see it as a visualization for how I actually try to live my life on this planet, breaking free of stereotypes and biases and all other kinds of impediments and obstacles that life likes to present to you. And this person is not breaking through with a falling motion, but they are actually in motion going through, which means they intend to continue moving forward. And I would assume break through any other obstacles that come up. So that just really grabbed me, and that's why I picked them. So congratulations, guys. Let's all, folks, let's all take a picture by the artwork. Oh, you were going to say something?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Sorry, hold up, I'm sorry. President,
Stand here.
We can't see you.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Aaron, that I was not there, but maybe I wouldn't have picked this, but I think with Dr. Hill and Ms. Taylor, things were in good hands. I wasn't able to be there this year. Just as a personal note, Ms. Reno taught my daughter Amanda art a few years ago, and there's an award that my mother-in-law, that the art department has given to my mother-in-law, and my daughter Amanda, who teaches at Sage Park, was able to pick something out as well. But I was able to see the show, and even though I wasn't there that night, and everything was great, and it reminded me a little bit of your piece, Aaron, which is the Windsor Board piece of growth and discovery in your speech that you gave at graduation. And so again, congratulations to everybody, and hopefully we'll be able to get a picture of everybody here. Maybe first come through and shake the few board members' hands that are here once we don't knock Aaron's piece over.
Shake hands. Congratulations.
Oh, okay.
Congratulations.
Good job.
Congratulations.
Congratulations again. And your speech was amazing. Congratulations. Well done. Congratulations. Congratulations.
congrats, man. We're gonna take a picture, okay?
We'll have to see how we can maybe.
Congrats to me. I appreciate it. I have no skill over here, but they-
Be sitting underneath the tree.
Congrats to me for having great speech.
Well, Jeremy, me and you should be in the middle because we're the tallest. The tree is not going to impact us.
The tree is not going to impact us.
It's not.
Yes, why don't you stand closer?
There it is.
We don't need to. Do you want us in there?
See, Jeremy's in the right spot. Still gets. Poor
The
Jill.
usual spot.
Poor Jill.
I'm going over here.
1, 2, 3. Perfect, thank you.
Mr. Fury has parting gifts.
Thank you. Yay.
It's like The Price is Right. You're rolling out the prize things.
Should you show that?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Good seeing you, Noah.
Next item on the agenda is the announcement of the Windsor Educator of the Year and the Para Educator of the Year. Looking to Ms. Batchelder.
Okay, good evening.
Good evening.
Our Educator of the Year for 2024-2025 is Christina McCann. from Pequannock Elementary School. Attached here is her bio regarding her, or just, excuse me, her bio, but I'm going to save that for when we come again in September, because everything will be read at that point. And then our para-educator of the year is Susan Lyons, and she is a para at John F. Kennedy School. Christina and Susan will be invited to the September board meeting to get recognized by the full board at that point. And they'll be giving speeches at convocation.
Next item on the agenda is audience to visitor. And Alexis, turn it over to you.
Good evening. This is Alexis Shack from the Superintendent's Office. If anyone from the public would like to address the board, you may do so in two ways. You may type your name, address, and comment into the Q&A feature in the Zoom application, or you may speak by clicking Raise Hand or by dialing *9 within the Zoom app. When you are called on to speak, you will be given 3 minutes to state your name, address, and comment. Please do not place the call on speakerphone. No comments can be made against the employees of the school district or children outside of your own. No comments will be made by the board at this time.
Thank you. And just to let folks know in the room, at the 2.5-minute mark, if you're still speaking, Secretary Lockhart will hold up a red card briefly. And then at the 3-minute mark, he'll hold it up and keep it up. And please, at that point, wind up your remarks. The same thing for if anybody is calling in at the 3-minute mark, since you won't be able to see the red card, Mr. Lockhart will indicate that, please, it's time to wind down your remarks. So at this time, is there anybody in the boardroom who'd like to address the board?
You good, or, sorry, just, so, my name is, Will Pelkey. I reside at 133 Portman Street here in town, and I'm here to talk about, our insurance. So, one of the concerns that I have after having attended some, of the town of Windsor's, insurance commission meetings, so these are the public meetings, is that the school system doesn't always use two-step verification for its employees, not talking about the students. And so it's my understanding from those meetings that we are then having an extra cost, if you will, for a different insurance carrier, to the tune of, 5 figures, if you will. And I would much rather see if we end up as a town, we are spending money on something, I'd rather see it go to the classroom use. So I would like to ask if you guys could take a look, and again, I may have a misunderstanding on that, but I would very much like to see that if we can utilize any of those savings and put them more directly into a classroom situation than going to an extra insurance policy just because we may not be following the most common and effective means at, different cybersecurity rationales. So again, it's not anything that is going to be millions of dollars worth of savings, but again, we all understand that once you get into the $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 range, that's not even a full-time position, but that certainly helps supplement things that go on inside of a classroom. So again, if we could look at that two-step verification and mandating it if possible for staff, again, it's the student login, everything else is a very different world. But in terms of employees, that would be wonderful. So as we're looking at that, and then one other thing, in having been an educator myself, sometimes things don't always, as an educator, you yourself know. And one of the things has to do with your ability with a captive audience, and this is under Connecticut law, for what you can say regarding different things going out into the public sphere for political purposes. I do know that there was an incident either earlier this month or at the end of last month, with regards to things being posted on the social media account for the school system. And I won't name or blame the particular educator because I would take them at their word that they didn't know, or that they are, or what I've heard that they don't know or understand, and that's fine. But I'd like to make sure that the training is there so that we don't run into any potential problems as a school system, or even as individual educators don't run afoul of anything either. And that sort of training starts with the superintendent's office and or this board. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else in the boardroom who'd like to address the board? Seeing and hearing none. Alexis, is there anybody online?
No, Mr. President.
Okay, without objection, close audience to visitor.
Yes, sir.
Objection against the visitors closed.
Mr. President, point of order, if I may. For the board's knowledge, right now, we're looking at the screen, and it is not in gallery view. We are not able to see Ms. Taylor and Mr. Madison. So I would ask that if Mr. Madison and Ms. Taylor, if you wish to be recognized, just interrupt verbally that you wish to be recognized, because if you raise your hand, we're not able to see that as of right now. Lexi can see it, but I may miss it at the dais while you're running the meeting, Mr. President.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And for the audience, both here and online, our board has been great of being in their seats unless they're sick or on travel. So this is, we know that this is not the best system that we have, and hopefully we can work on improving it. But it's unusual really for us to even have two people virtual, so. Next item is the consent agenda. Before I have a motion, is there any item that anyone would like pulled?
Mr. President, I'd like to pull food services.
Anything else? Anybody want to pull anything else? Seeing and hearing none, if you could do your first motion omitting the food service.
Mr. President, I move the Board of Education approve consent agenda items 4A, financial report, 4B, enrollment report, and 4D, human resources report.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion made by Mr. Lockhart, seconded Mr. Halleck for approval of 4A, financial report, 4B, enrollment report, and 4D, human resources report. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions?
One moment for Mr. Madison and Ms. Taylor, please.
Aye.
I hear aye from Mr.
Oh,
Madison.
we see him. Oh.
All right. Ms. Taylor, I believe I heard you as well as aye. Ms. Taylor?
Yes, it's hard to know because I can't hear you all either. James and I cannot hear y'all at all.
That's noted.
I can hear when Danielle Batchelder speaks, I can hear, but when anybody speaks beyond the dais, we can't hear you.
Yeah, it's difficult.
Message received. We will speak louder if we can.
Or we could have Alexis repeat, or Ms. Batchelder repeat.
All right, 800.
Okay, motion carries 800. Is there another motion?
Mr. President, I move the Board of Education approve consent agenda item 4C, food services report.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion made by Mr. Lockhart, seconded by Mr. Halleck to accept the food service report. And Mr. Lockhart, I'll have you speak to this item.
Thank you very much. Dr. Hill, through you, I'd like to recognize Ms. Batchelder to speak on this particular topic.
Thank you. So I just wanted to point out, because we are coming to the end of the continuous flow of money within school foods under the state and federal government. From COVID, we've received a lot of grant money, and you will see that in the expenses. So I wanted to make sure that everyone understood that these numbers will drastically decrease when you see this report come September. We have a couple really exciting projects that we're doing that we can use eligible for these funds. So Clover and JFK are both getting brand new serving lines over the summer. Windsor High School is getting 2 walk-in freezers and 1 walk-in refrigerator. Sage Park is getting 1 walk-in freezer and 1 walk-in refrigerator. And Pequannock, we upgraded their entire serving line during this past school year. So I just wanted to point that out so everyone understood when they see come September the drastic decrease in the opening balance.
I'm all set, Mr. President. Thank you.
Any other questions on that from Ms. Batchelder? Okay. Motion's been made to accept 4C, the food service report. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Okay.
Opposed, nay. Abstention, motion carries 800. Next, we have the approval of minutes, and there were special meeting minutes of May 21st, regular meeting minutes of May 21st, and June 4th policy committee. Does anybody need any of those pulled? Seeing and hearing none, then I'll let a motion to be made by Mr. Lockhart.
Mr. President, I move the Board of Education approve the minutes from May 21st, 2024 special meeting, May 21st, 2024 regular meeting, and June 4th, 2024 policy committee meeting.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion made by Mr. Lockhart, seconded Mr. Halleck, to approve the minutes of May 21st special meeting, May 21st regular meeting, and June 4th policy committee meeting. All those in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, nay. Abstention, motion carries 800. Next item is the President's report. As always, this time of year is a busy last month of the school year. And this was no exception, with a lot of events for our students. On May 30th, I attended the Honor Cord and Senior Scholarship Celebration. I saw Mr. Panos and Ms. Cantor there, and there may have been others, but I was sitting kind of towards the back, so I apologize if I didn't see any other board members there. Again, it's amazing what our students are doing at Windsor High School, and a lot of colorful folks at graduation with a number of honor cords that were earned. Scholarship night, again, an exciting night of how much this community supports our high school students, and a great evening. On May 31st, I went to Oliver Ellsworth to see some of our high school students that were in their caps and gowns parade through the school, with students applauding all through the hallway. And there were a few students who had been at Ellsworth. Now that Ellsworth is not K through or pre-K to 5, and many students come to Windsor in the middle of their years, there weren't that many that said that they had been at OE, or that their teachers, including Mrs. Fury, were still there. But again, it's a nice tradition that I know some other schools do, and we've picked that up a few years ago. On June 4th, I attended the virtual policy meeting with Mr. Madison, Mr. Lockhart, and the chairman, Mr. Wollaston. And a reminder to the public that even committee meetings that we do virtually, which is how we've been handling, except for our finance committee, virtually are open to the public. And there are announcements and ways to watch those meetings online. On June 5th, I attended a wonderful celebration for our adult ed graduates at Windsor High School Auditorium. Representative Jane Garibay was also present. And there are some amazing stories of people overcoming hardships, that people who may have struggled, students who struggled when they were younger, who've now come back. One woman was a grandma and came back and talked about how through each time one of her children was successful of graduating, so she felt she was graduating as well, and how proud she was of them. So great work that our adult education department and our teachers do for adult education. On June 6th, I attended promotion ceremony for Clover Street School that was held at LPW this year at the auditorium. Mr. Madison was present as a proud parent. On June 7th, I helped celebrate Team 5 and Team 6 promotion ceremony at Sage Park. Dr. Haiti was the keynote speaker, and again, Mr. Madison was there as he has a son going off from Sage Park to high school. Finally, on June 11th, I was at graduation on stage to congratulate our 2024 graduates. I know Mr. Wollaston, Mr. Lockhart, Ms. Taylor were in attendance, along with other members from the town council, including a very proud mayor as her son was graduating. That is my report. Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none. School liaison reports. I will defer the high school. I think it's hard unless Ms. Taylor has something she wants to add. I'll at least start with Mr. Wollaston.
Yeah, I'd just say congratulations to all the graduates, but especially our mayor's son, Caleb, and our superintendent's daughter, Adia. You know, we got some pretty big movements this year, so I'd just like to send a special congratulations to them all and to the rest of the student body as well.
Thank you. I don't know, Ms. Taylor, if there's anything you want to add.
Just congratulating the class of 2024. I'm so excited to see what they'll do next. They're very special, as it was mentioned throughout the graduation, that these were the COVID children that came over and things were different for them for the first time for their freshman year. So they're just dynamic group, and a special shout out, of course, to Adia Hill and Kayla Burke and all the rest of the students that we cheer on to see what's next. That's it.
And it was a nice gesture where Dr. Hill was given the diploma to give to his daughter directly, while everybody else was getting the assistant principals who were taking turns and some of the teacher leaders as well. So that was memorable. Any questions for the high school? None. Sage Park Middle School.
Just congratulations on all the students filing off the school year, and for those going on to the high school, it's great to see you guys.
Clover Street School, Mr. Madison.
Yeah, nothing to report other than the promotion ceremony. It was excellent. Mrs. Lee did a great job in LP Wilson, where we had the standing room only crowd. So congratulations to all the kids for their promotions and promotion going forward.
John F. Kennedy School, Ms. Cantor.
Thank you. Mrs. Rodriguez was able to teach 2 hula lessons to students at JFK with Mrs. Wood, and the students performed the hula dance of the JFK's assembly. Stories are told through their hair motions and body movements in the Hawaiian and Polynesian cultures. For example, hands, arms are used to show rain, waves, a pua, which is a flower, sun and wind. And I just want to thank you, Mrs. Rodriguez, for your ability to go in and teach this as a volunteer to all students so they could learn these cultures. Also, the 5th grade carnival took place, as well as a perfect attendance lunch, and the last day of school was Friday, June 7th, and congratulations to those students.
Any questions for John F. Kennedy? A shout out to Miss Woods, our assistant principal there. She will be missed very much. And she and Dana, for the last couple of years, or year and a half, made a great team there at JFK. And best of luck to her and her future endeavors. Oliver Ellsworth School, Mr. Lockhart.
Thank you very much. I was able to attend the end of one promotional ceremony and the beginning of the second one. As you know, we're going through the HVAC project there in that building. Since the close of school, I've been in there 4 times. Spent about 45 minutes in there each trip, just really looking some more. And they're probably wondering who I am, and that's okay. But the building is coming along. I'm hoping and praying that we will have this project done by the time the teachers come back for convocation and set up their rooms. But everything looks to be on schedule, and I will be in that building at least 2 or 3 times a week throughout the summer. And if stuff doesn't look right, Ms. Batchelder will hear from me, as well as the Public Building Commission, as well as Carlos, as well as the town. So I'm going to see this all the way through, and with the board, we're going to see it happen. We can't lose the staff another year if we allow this project to fail and they come back to a building that's not the way they desire it to be. So there's a lot riding on this. So all of us as a collective board, we got to be together on this. That's all I got.
Okay. Any questions for Oliver Ellsworth? Just want to give a personal shout out to Mr. Lockhart for extraordinary service ever since we knew of the problem. That the problem was still existing, and we had, as most know, we had a terrible hot summer. But Mr. Lockhart got Mr. Gruber and Dr. Hill's approval to go in there on a regular basis. Luckily, he's got some expertise. If I was there, I wouldn't have known what I was looking at. It wouldn't have helped. And I want to thank Mr. Panos for initially coming out during those first couple of months, also looking at, and Ken Smith, who was on the council at that time, just jumped in and went above and beyond what would be expected from their position. So shout again, thank you, Mr. Lockhart, for that. Pequannock School, Mr. Halleck.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, I'd like to thank congratulate actually all the students who received their promotions at Pequannock School. It is summertime, but we do have some PTO meetings over the summer. The first one will be on July 1st from 6 to 7 p.m. The second one will be on August 5th, 6 to 7 p.m. as well. And then again on September 2nd as well. And that concludes my report for tonight.
Do you know if those are virtual, or are they will be in person? And if in person, would they be at the school even in the summer?
Yes, I believe they are both in person and virtual. Okay. And they have been meeting in the Pequannock Library as well.
Thank you. Any other questions for Pequannock? Mr. Lockhart.
Yes, I just want to say thank you to Mayor Black Burke. She was invited along with myself to give commentary at that promotional exercise. So we did not find it robbery, and we were very humbled by the opportunity to speak to the kids as well as the families at that particular event. It was special for me because my son's stepson was part of that particular class as well. And it was just humbling to be there and just see all the kids and all the staff and the continued environment that happens at Pequannock School. So just want to make sure we recognize that the mayor did speak at that particular exercise.
Thank you very much for that. Any other questions for Pequannock? Okay. Next item of business is a discussion and possible action to extend the current hybrid format for Board of Education meetings. And
Mr. President, would you like a motion to start discussion?
Yes.
Mr. President, I move to extend the current hybrid meeting format for 2024-2025 school year for board members and public for regular board meetings, including special meetings, and leaving Finance Committee as a hybrid, and policy, curriculum, and long-range planning committee meetings as virtual. Executive committee meetings would be decided by the board president.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion made by Mr. Lockhart, seconded by Mr. Halleck. Discussion, Mr. Lockhart, you could probably explain mainly for, I think, most of us know why we've been doing this.
Mr. President, I made the motion, but I would like to yield to the policy chairman to lead discussion, please.
Mr. Wollaston.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to raise that in policy committee, we did have some discussion about the possibility of coming to the board and seeing if there is a desire to extend indefinitely the hybrid model we've been using, with exception for finance committee and executive committee, I believe. So I would just raise that to the board and see if there's any desire to amend the motion.
Mr. Lockhart? I guess the question would be, do we somehow slightly modify the motion to say, that this will be the plan for next year unless the policy committee comes up with an alternative that is approved by the board?
Mr. President, as the policy chairman stated, this was discussed in policy committee. It was also discussed with the spirit that we would have a full board of 9 here to have that conversation. Mr. Panos is not here. This is something I believe we can modify in September if need be. I'm in agreement with modifying, just for the record, but considering that Mr. Panos is not here, I think we want to make sure we have all 9 people at the table to make a decision like that, but I will yield to the will of the board.
And I guess with your parliamentarian hat, just to make sure that this motion only takes a majority, and it would only take a majority to make changes unless it's going to be if it's going to be whether it's a bylaw, or if we create a bylaw or a policy, it would only take a majority vote to do so. Is that correct?
This current action only requires a simple majority. If we are to codify into the bylaws, that would take 2/3 majority vote.
So at this point in time, I think we can pass this knowing that there's basically agreement on both sides of the aisle. Mr. Madison shaking his head there because he participated in this. And actually, some of the suggestions that we had from the policy was at Mr. Madison's suggestion. And so one of the things we had talked about in the committee meeting is looking at not only models from Cabe or Shipman and Goodwin, but what are the other towns doing? And we still can make it what's right for us, but just so that if we're really going to make a policy or a bylaw, and bylaws, as Mr. Lockhart alluded to, can't be changed unless there's a 2/3 vote, this has worked fairly well for us administratively. So, Mr. Wollaston.
Yes, through you, Mr. President, I just, I'm kind of inquiring what is the mind or the desire of the other party here today, because I know we heard from Mr. Madison, but I'm just looking to understand where they're at as well.
Yeah, Mr. Madison, first, as you were involved in that, is there something you'd like to add? And then I'll be looking to Mr. Halleck and Ms. Cantor to see if there's any input they'd like for tonight.
Yeah, thank you. Further discussion in the policy committee, I don't think it's controversial, because my understanding is we're just extending it for the year based on this particular motion. Anything bigger, we can have a discussion another time, but I don't think we need to add any language to this to try to predict future overrides, because that's just part of how things work. So this one's non-controversial, so I think even if we don't have the full 9, we can move this one forward. And then if we want to change it permanently, like we talked about in the policy committee, that would come up as a future vote.
Okay. Any comment by Ms. Cantor, Mr. Howard?
I'm agreement with that. I'm in agreement because it's difficult. You see tonight. I mean, you don't know.
Yep. Okay, so there's been
Mr.
a...
Halleck. Yeah, Mr. Halleck.
Mr. Halleck, sorry.
No problem, Mr. President. I'm also in agreement. I think we can move forward on this. I don't think it's controversial, and it's only for a year, so if the committee doesn't come up with anything, it'll just come back to us, so.
Very good. So there's been a motion regarding extending the hybrid...
Mr. President?
Yes.
I would just ask, we recognize Ms. Taylor, make sure that, because I can't see her, just want to make sure that she's okay with what's going on as well.
Ms. Taylor, I don't know if you heard that. Any comments that you have regarding this plan?
It's good to have opportunities, even when you can't, be in the room and when we literally cannot be there. So I think this is just fine to move as is.
Okay, so there's a motion. It's been seconded regarding extending the hybrid format. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Abstention, motion carries 800. Next item is the superintendent's report. Dr. Hill.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I'd like to first thank our community scholarship partners. Our graduating seniors received over $127,000 in scholarships at the Senior Scholarship and Awards Night on May 30th. Our Windsor Public Schools Summer Food Program will run from tomorrow, June 19th through August 16th. Monday through Friday, closed on July 4th and 5th at the following locations: Sharshan Park at 38 Skitchewag Street from 11:30 a.m. to 12:15 p.m. and at John Fitch Park, 156 Bloomfield Avenue from 12 o'clock p.m. to 12:45 p.m. Due to changes in federal regulations for the summer food service program, the child must be present to be eligible for a meal. No parent or guardian pickup is permitted, and the child's meal must be consumed on site. Grab-and-go meals are no longer permitted. Each child or teen 18 and under is eligible for one lunch per day. The menu is posted on the district website. The Windsor Public Schools Summer Reading Program, Adventure Begins at Your Library, is underway for students in all of our schools. Families should visit the district website for more information. I will just reiterate, I am really pushing and encouraging families to read with their students this summer, and do not let them let the entire summer go by and then try to read a couple of days before school starts. We finished the year with all of our district administrators at our annual year-end meetings, and we had them at the firehouse, and we just want to thank Mr. Paul Goldberg for helping to coordinate that. It's a nice space, and we enjoyed using it. We will start our Windsor Public Schools credit recovery for our high school students who need to recover credits to get back on track for graduation. Registration opened yesterday online, and there will be an in-person registration on Friday, June 21st from 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock p.m. at Windsor High School. Registration will close on Friday, June 21st in the evening. It will close on Friday, June 21st in the evening. I know people wonder, why am I repeating? Because I don't want to see emails and I don't want phone calls. I'm giving you the information. I am pleased to announce the appointment of one new administrator. So it's actually an acting assistant principal. As you heard the president mention earlier, Kim Wood has left us. She's retired. She's gone on to that great space of I don't have to actually wake up in the morning at the time I need to wake up. But effective July 1st, 2024, Kristen Bloom will be in the acting assistant principal role for John F. Kennedy School. Kristen currently serves as a math interventionist at Pequannock School, where she's actually been at the school for some years. And we will conduct a search for a permanent assistant principal in the spring. So we're excited for Kristen. My coffee talks have concluded for the school year. Please watch for coffee talks for 24-25 school year. They'll be posted on the district website. I don't think I need to say this one because people will know this. But I will say, after tonight's board meeting, which is the last for this school year, the next board meeting will be September 17th, 2024. First day of school for students. I know they're like, please don't say it. There is a first day of school for the 24-25 school year. It will be Monday, August 26, 2024. Families are reminded to update their returning children's information in the Power School Parent Portal. Returning Student Update 24-25. There is a banner on the district website, and families may access their forms there. It is important to update phone numbers, emergency contacts, etc., in the parent portal prior to the start of the new school year. Every year, we ask parents to do this. This is important, parents. When something happens, we need to know how to reach you. If you move in town, change numbers, anything, we need to know that. Please update the portal. And thank you to Jenny Haran, Howard Marsh, and Jamil Ahmed from Win TV, and Robin Daly and Lexi Schacht, our stenographers, for their expertise with Zoom, as well as Sam Batchelder and Kevin Moriarty for their assistance with the board meetings. And at this time, I will ask Ms. Batchelder to give a brief explanation regarding the new law around money the district can keep from the town.
Sounds good to me.
That was up front.
Okay. So, this isn't actually new for this lapsing account, so I just wanted to point that out. This has been around, I'm going off memory right now, I believe since 2012, when it was first rolled out. And back then, and until this school year, it was only able to be really used for capital improvement. So this new law allows the Board of Ed it allows the local Board of Ed to actually make a deposit up to 2% of their annual operating budget into a reserve fund. This reserve fund has to be approved, a joint approval between Board of Ed and, for us, would be Town Council on this. And these funds could be used for other things other than capital improvements. That was the enhancement to this bill, this session. Does anyone have any?
Did we ever, when it was capital improvements only, did we ever?
We have not,
We
at
never-
least since
so
I have.
Something probably never came to the board to ask the board for approval for us to ship it to council, or?
No. So I've been here for 10 years, and we've never even broached the subject with the town of Windsor or me to the Board of Ed. There's a lot of pros and cons to it.
Any other questions of Ms. Batchelder? Any questions, Mr. Madison or Ms. Taylor? And then I'll get to Ms. Cantor. Ms. Cantor?
Thank you. So if you are able to do the 2% into a reserve fund, do you notify all the board members? Do we have a discussion about it? How does that work? Yes?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we would have to actually have a non-lapsing account for Board of Ed. It would have to be an arrangement that we make with the Town Council and Board of Ed. It's a dual process.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I just want to point out, though, that, again, the Board of Ed is not holding any funds. It's literally, it's housed at the town of Windsor, just like our funds are now. So we're making a deposit, but the deposit is not actual real money. We don't hold cash. Right. And so to get that back, there will be back and forth requests and meetings to be held and explanations to be had as to why we need the money.
Thank you. Back to Dr. Hill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Ms. Batchelder. So now we'll turn things over to Dr. Haiti for first the 23-24 academics update, and then the Connecticut Leaders and Educators Evaluation and Support Plan information.
right, so good evening, everyone. I just want to let everyone know, so we currently do not have SBAC scores available for public information. So we will probably be back in probably not September, maybe October, with our state accountability report and our SBAC scores. So as of right now, our academic updates will include our DIBELS, which is our in-house screener for K3 for reading. Also K8 iReady for math and reading. We also have SAT and PSAT scores that we will be able to share, as well as our chronic absenteeism and some of our academic updates and our goals and steps for next year. So looking at this slide, and we do feel as a team that this is such an area of celebration for us. As you can see, blue is our Windsor students, and red is our Connecticut average. Yellow is every single student that took the SAT nationwide. So you can see from 22 to 23 to 24, what this shows you is that we've closed the gap between our students and the national average as well as the Connecticut average. So that is definitely an area of celebration for us this year at the high school. Moving on to the next slide, you will see math. Again, and actually when you see numbers, it's much less than ELA, but you can see we are closing the gap between our students and as well as the national average and the Connecticut average. However, as a state and as a country, the average has gone down from year to year. But this is an area where we need to do more work in, and that we have a plan for next year, moving on for next year. Looking at the next slide, looking at PSAT scores for ninth graders. Again, we're making the comparison between our Windsor High School students and our Connecticut average. And our goal here is we're taking it one step at a time. So we want to get to the Connecticut average. And then once we get to the Connecticut average, we want to definitely get to our national average and surpass the Connecticut and national average. So you can see we're at 29% are ninth graders in the fall versus Connecticut as a state at 43%. So we have some work to do here for reading and writing. But if you look at math, which is very interesting because it flips when it gets to 11th grade, our average is very close to the Connecticut average in math. Same thing, looking at 10th and 11th grade PSAT scores. Between our Windsor High School students, 11th graders, and our Connecticut average for reading and writing. We are at exactly the same point for 11th graders in the fall, and then for 10th graders as well in the fall, 37% versus 49%. In math, again, our high school average is closer to the state average, was 24% versus the state at 27% for our 11th graders, and our 10th graders, 19% for us at the high school versus 28% at the state. Moving on to the next slide. Again, I think this is an area of celebration for us. Looking at our iReady score, so I've provided data from back to 2018, 2019, because that was post-COVID. Pre-COVID, and I wanted us to see that comparing to last year and even comparing to 2018, 2019, we finally, in most of our grade levels, we still have a couple that we're not there yet, but in every other grade level, we've surpassed our average from 2018, 2019. So we got back to where we were before COVID and actually went farther. So looking at first grade, before COVID, we were at 65%, now we're at 71%. Second grade, we were at 61%, now we're at 72%, and so on and so forth. The colors are just increase or decrease from 2023 and 2022, 2023. But I think it does make sense for us to look at where we were before COVID and how we've been doing. So we're definitely on the right track. We are seeing, great student growth. So this is student performance. So that gives you the average of students that are at or above grade level. but there's also a measure of growth. So how the percent of our kids growing is between K-8 is at about 147%. That means the average student, if you line them all up, the median is 147%. So they have made a year and a half almost of growth in that year, 23-24. Looking at the reading for iReady, again, in a lot of the grade levels, we have gone back to our, actually past our 2018-2019 numbers, and comparing to last year, we are seeing some incredible numbers, some in the double digit, which we would love to have a 20% increase from year to year, but we celebrate any increase. Double-digit gains are definitely something worth celebrating. We have noticed a interesting phenomena in fourth grade where in both reading and math, our numbers have gone down. So we're doing a lot of curriculum work, looking at our curriculum, looking at our program in fourth grade to see exactly what is not aligning here with our student assessments. Looking at the next slide, this is a percentage of students that are at or above grade level, 1 grade level below, and 2 or more grade level below. And as you can see, the last column is the percent of increase that we had from the fall to the spring. So beginning of the year to end of the year, the percent of students that have moved in the green. So we were able to get 49% in second grade to be at or above grade level. So that was an increase from beginning to end of the year and so on down. So this is where I was talking about. We're celebrating double-digit gains in some grade levels, incredible gains, 49% in second grade. That's incredible. Some grade levels have started the year pretty low, so the expectation is that they do make more gains than other grade levels that did not start as low. But we're definitely very excited. Our instructional services team is very excited with the growth and gain that we've made this year. And our next slide is, again, our math, iReady, kindergarten through 8th grade, and the percent of students that we have in each category. All right. DIBELS is one of our newer assessment, and that is part of the state mandate, the rating program. We had to have a state-approved reading assessment. iReady was not on the list, so we had to adopt a different assessment. So we adopted DIBELS for students in K-3. And that chart shows you the comparison of how students started. So in kindergarten, we had 40% of our students at the beginning of the at the beginning of the year at or above benchmark, and we ended the year with that same class with 78% of our students in kindergarten reading at or above benchmark. First grade, we started at 50, we ended the year at 78. Second grade, we started at 61, we ended the year at 74. And third grade, we started the year at 69. However, third grade does not test at the end of the year. We only test students who are in tier 2 or 3. So we have a small population, so it doesn't make sense to compare to beginning of the year. Our next slide, that's our chronic absenteeism, but I have to say that was as of April because the state had not certified our May and June data yet, but I just looked up our numbers internally this morning. We have 511 students who are chronically absent out of our total, that's 15%. So our chronic absenteeism is around 15% this year versus 33% last year, which is an incredible decrease, almost half. So we cut our chronic absenteeism in half. So that's great. Our kids are coming to school. Up to April, the state average was at 19. We were at 23. But obviously, when you add May and June, and students tend to attend school and not miss school in May and June because that's when all your field trips and all the fun stuff happen. So our numbers increase in these 2 months. All right. So as you can see, we have a lot of celebrations, and we made sure that, part of making sure that your team grows is celebrating, even if there are small wins. Everybody worked really hard this year. Our teachers, our administrators, curriculum directors, and supervisors. So we made sure we celebrated the numbers and the data that we have so far. We're hoping to see an increase in our accountability report card next year. But we also did a lot of reflection, because in order for us to have the same kind of growth next year and even more, we have to know exactly what was it that caused us to get to where we are this now versus what we did in previous years. So we met with our instructional team, which is our team of coaches, supervisors, and curriculum directors, and we really reflected over what are those academic things that we've done this year that were different from every year, that we feel like they worked for us and got us to where we are. We had an intentional focus this year. Our theme was going back to the basics. And we really felt like that explicit teaching that we kept pushing all year was one of the things that really worked for us. And that went hand in hand with this whole idea of going back to paper and pencil. We did not take away technology. However, we had a huge decrease in our use of technology in the school. We only used technology at certain times. It was less than 20%, 20 minutes of the whole day. Sorry. And it was very intentional. The use of technology was geared towards our tier 2. So students were, for example, using iReady, My Path, which is a individualized learning pathway that students work at their own pace on skills that they need. So my path is different than yours, depending on what skills we needed. So it was very intentional to limit the use of technology. We also, and I know that came up at one of our board meetings, we started rolling out BTC, which is Building Thinking Classroom, at the high school. It has gotten a lot of great positive attention from our teachers. A lot of our teachers wanted to join in, wanted to go to PD, try it. And then it kept coming down from the high school. Middle school teachers got interested in it, so they tried it. And we actually had a couple of fifth grade teachers that were also interested towards the end of the year and started trying some of the strategies. According to our coaches and our instructional team, that instructional model was really helpful in keeping kids engaged. And we felt like that was one of the things that worked for us this year. We also had frequent walkthrough with feedback and follow-up. We have a walkthrough form that we use as administrators across the district. Our coaches use that form as well. And I think we are up to over 2,000 or 3,000 drop-ins. That means an administrator or a coach has visited a classroom, provided feedback, and collected data. So then we look at this data as a district, and that kind of informs our professional development and our areas of needs and target that we target. We really pushed teachers outside of their comfort zone this year. We expected big things out of teachers. We talked a lot about teachers believing that kids can do it, teachers believing that they can move kids. We had our Windsor Nation 3 times a year where we push teachers to just try new things and, and see where we are. So, and I really feel like when teachers saw the success that we had this year, we're hearing a lot of feedback like, wow, it was hard at first. I didn't really know how that's going to go, but now, I see why you guys pushed us like that. I see the benefit of doing that. So we're hoping that we're going to continue with that momentum for next year. We also had a very strategic and purposeful alignment of our PLCs, our data talks that now we have district-wide, as well as our school development plan. So it didn't feel like people were doing so many different things. Everything was aligned and everything was just toward one area and a very focused goal. And again, our consistent messaging district-wide to our teachers, our families, our students, everyone was speaking the same language, and that definitely helped. So that's what worked for academics. Under culture, our SEL work is amazing. We are we are moving into a push-in model for support, so we're not waiting for things to happen for our SEL specialists to address. We are pushing into the classroom. SEL specialists are working alongside our teachers in the classroom to provide support, kind of being proactive instead of reactive. And that has really shown a lot of great gains in terms of SEL. Building teachers' leadership, so we have asked PLC leaders as well as teachers to have teacher-to-teacher visits and get that culture of visiting your colleague and providing feedback, inviting your colleagues to come in. That culture has been definitely pushed, and it will be pushed even further next year with set schedules to allow teachers to go visit their colleagues. Accountability was definitely a huge thing this year, and it got to a point where we started seeing teachers holding teachers accountable. So it wasn't just administrators holding teachers. When it becomes a school culture of, like, that's what we do here, the one-offs and the two-offs, you will find teachers holding each other accountable so that that sense of team is there. And then self-efficacy. We did a lot of work, like I said earlier, around self-efficacy and getting teachers to believe that they can cause learning, and they are actually the #1 factor in causing learning in student and causing student achievement. So yes, a great leader makes a huge difference. However, research tells us that teachers are the #1, and the biggest impact on student achievement comes from the teachers. So we've done a lot of work around self-efficacy as well. All right, so now what are we doing next year? So now that we know what worked for us, we're not changing anything, we're not adding anything. We're gonna keep our focus on Tier 1. Same theme, we're going back to the basics. We are using paper pencil, we're limiting technology to really just where we need to use technology. We're gonna keep our data focus. Data talks have come up as an area of strength for us across all buildings. Principals, teachers, coaches, everyone feels like this whole idea of holding teachers accountable and having these data conversations on a quarterly or a trimester basis has really helped and pushed teachers to really focus on each individual child and not looking at their data as a class. Also, our focus on SEL, and our last bucket of focus is our school-to-home connection. And that is through our Office of Family and Community Partnership with the events that we do with our families, as well as pushing our teachers to make these connections to home and support families in supporting their kids at home. So, whether it's making sure students are taking notes to take home so that families who want to help their kids at home have something to refer to. We have different initiatives that we have K-12 to support our school-to-home connection. Something else that we are, it's not really different, but it's just a focus within our focus, which is how are we incorporating our portrait of the graduate into what we do. So we all know that, as Windsor Public Schools, our mission is to develop the genius in every child. And how we're going to do that is that we've come up with 5 attributes that the board has approved and that we've adopted as our portrait of the graduate. So these 5 attributes are going to be the way of how we are going to make sure that our kids get to our mission. Through these 5 attributes, as a team, we have come up with our shared understanding of high-quality instruction, and that is the work that we're really going to be focusing on next year. So we're going to get all our teachers, all our administrators, we're even going to message it to our families and our students to understand what do we as a Windsor Public School system, how do we see high-quality instruction? And to us, high-quality instruction results in student thinking critically. So the focus is on thinking critically. That is the main focus, and the way we're going to get our kids to think critically is through the 4 attributes that we have in our portrait, which is solving problems, communicating, and being socially responsible and being self-aware. So we're going to make sure that we all speak the same language. If you look at our daily expectations for all our teachers. It's all around thinking. So we're expecting teachers to get student thinking. We're expecting teachers to create tasks that will make students think. And we're also expecting teachers to put kids in groups where they think together and challenge each other. So as you can see, our instructional purpose is all focused around thinking. And we feel like that is the next level of work that we are going to be able to, if we really do this right, we're going to keep seeing the numbers going up, and we're going to see a complete transformation in how we in Windsor teach our kids and how our kids learn. So for the past few years, we've really been focused on what teachers do. Now we're going to really focus on, once teachers do what they do, how do we know that kids are actually learning? So the evidence of impact on the kids, that is something that we're going to really focus on to make sure that the transformation from teaching to learning is actually happening and taking place. And our last slide, we're going to continue to share our data, the good and the bad, because I think that is the only way to get people to really see and own the work that we do, and create that sense of urgency and transparency for our entire district. We're going to continue to use data talks and, again, continue to focus on instructional accountability and making sure that this is really at the heart of everything that we do here in Windsor. And I think I touched on everything else. So any questions? Yes.
Ms. Cantor.
Thank you. You say back to basics, paper and pencil, and I know that cursive develops the brain, all different areas of the brain. So are you implementing that in 3rd through 5th grade so students will have that? Because that's a requirement in a lot of the high school classes to write essays in cursive and also for college essays. So will you be implementing that this year?
So as of right now, we do not have a plan, like a solid plan to implement cursive district-wide, but we'll definitely take the feedback and I'll share it with the team and see what we can do with it.
Okay, because it really helps to develop the brain in all different areas, using that, all the different motions and everything, and it helps with the math too. Now, there's another thing I wanted to say. You said limited use of technology. What percentage of the school day is technology used, and what percentage of the school day will it be decreased?
So currently this year, the directive was that we don't want kids to be on technology more than 20 minutes of the school day. So
For the entire day?
Yes.
Oh, that's good. And then, so what will you be doing the other days? I mean, the rest of the day, the percentage?
Teaching and learning.
Well, writing and,
Yes.
okay.
So actually
Well,
writing, and that's
I
what
wanted to
we're-
know, like, what percentage of writing you will be doing,
I don't, so the
including
entire-
math, because it's using a pen or pencil and
Yes, so
paper.
we expect students to be engaged in either solving problems in math, whether it's actually writing or writing on the board, engaging in conversations, doing, activities that are
Right.
not related to a computer or a Chromebook or an iPad.
Great, so it's like 75%, because the other 5% is, you know how it
I
is
would
getting
say it's like
organized.
an 80-20.
Okay,
probably.
all right, good. And for the students, I noticed when I was looking through this, I know it was really sad to see, I think it was the 4th grade, they fell below, and I know you said you're going to look into that. Why don't you level the grades so if they're if they're in grade 3 and they're reading at grade level 2, why don't you group those students together so you can focus on them, so you can move them up, so they'll move up? And the same thing with 1st grade. Why don't you do that to try and boost them?
So we have different, yeah, no.
So I'm going to answer that one, Ms. Cantor, very flatly. I'm never going to do that kind of leveling. And it really does not work that way. It comes up from time to time over the years. In my 22 years in Windsor, it's come up repeatedly. That doesn't work. If they're all on that level, you have them there, it just doesn't work. So we're going to keep looking at various strategies, but that's not a strategy that I'm going to promote in the district to level kids. It just doesn't work.
There's a lot of stress that goes along with children not understanding and learning, and then they're not as focused, and then they have a lot of anxiety. That causes a lot of anxiety. So I'd like to know.
It's also a lot of stress when they're put in a group and they know they're in the bottom group somewhere. So
But it's also a lot of stress when they can't perform at the required level.
They will.
So,
They will.
So
32
again,
years tells me
Pardon
that
me?
doesn't work. And
I'm sorry.
I'm not a fan of that. I won't move to that. That is not anything I'm going to ask my staff to even consider, that kind of grouping. I just won't.
Okay, so
Not positive.
I'm looking
We do have
forward.
different systems of support, so they do get support, but not the way you're talking about. So we do have tier 2 and tier 3 intervention, depending on what needs they have. They get push-in support, they get pull-out support. We have so many different ways that we do support our students who are not at grade level. But the idea is that students have to be exposed to grade level expectations, otherwise they will never get there.
Well, you always want to set a high standard. You want to set a goal higher than the actual standard because you want to see a lot of accomplishments. So I'm interested to see what you find out when you do your research on what works for these kids to get them up there. It's sad, it's hard, and I don't like seeing kids, suffer with that because, it brings a lot of anxiety. So, okay.
I'm going to ask you to help me promote.
I will.
Parents, you need to be reading with your kids all summer. We just
Yes.
can't be nice about it.
No.
Right? We act like we don't want to say things that might offend people, but you become a better reader when you read.
Absolutely. I did it all the time with my son. I gave him all kinds of math problems. I gave him all kinds of reading problems, all types of things. And you need to read to them every night. It's not easy. I gave up a lot. My husband gave up a lot. That's what parents need to do to make it work, Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone over here with questions? Mr. Wollaston?
Yeah, my question is just a kind of a question for clarification. Could you just explain or just list for us the state tests that our students do take? And are there any state tests that overlap similar subjects for the similar age groups or grade levels?
Yes. So our students take SBAC in reading and math in grades 3 through 8. They take NGSS, which is science, in grades 5, 8, and 11. That's it. So we do have a lot of testing. So after spring break, because of state testing, as well as because we are an Alliance district, we have to have a diagnostic assessment, which is iReady, and we have to give it 3 times a year. So spring break on, our students, especially 3-8, are almost testing the whole time until the end of school year. Between reading, math, science,
And then
and iReady.
what was the other one you mentioned? Devils or?
Dibbles is K-3, and again, that's a district mandate.
And that's just for a different
Reading.
grade level group, right?
It's K-3, yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
So third graders are that common grade that has Dibbles, iReady, SBAC, but they don't have a
Must be a very
GSS.
tough year.
Mr. Halleck, and then Mr. Lockhart.
Thank you. Excuse me. I just had a question on the dibbles as well. Percentage-wise, it says, at-risk students are taking that in the spring, in the third grade. What's the percentage of students in that grade that are taking that in the spring?
18%.
18%?
Are intervention students. So those 18% in the red who are well below benchmark, those are the kids who retake it again in the spring.
Okay. That's all I had. Thank you.
Mr. Lockhart, then Mr. Wollaston.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. So we've been talking about, at least during my time on this board, on how do we provide supports to the kids and how do we address it. And one of the most common things we've been discussing is statistically, if we don't catch it by the third grade, they struggle academically for the rest of their career. I think that's been well documented, at least during my time on this board. So I want to go back to the Finance Committee meetings and the budget process. I've made it known that we have a lot of supports that I saw in place and in action K through 3 in the buildings. And there's been times, sometimes those supports had to be pulled, maybe at times to cover classrooms or to do other things. And at times, some of the kids weren't getting the supports that they should be getting for whatever reasons. But at the same time, on paper, in theory, if those supports weren't being bothered and they were getting the supporting the kids 100% of the time, maybe the results be a little bit better than what they are. But statistically, that it just hasn't happened. I know that we are, as a board, supposed to be working with the superintendent to provide the resources required to make these things happen. I know that I will always continue to advocate for Tier 2, Tier 3 supports, especially in the area of reading and math. I will always advocate for more support staff within the buildings so that these people are not being pulled away significant amount of times during the day, even if it's for 30 minutes. If we lost 30 minutes a day for these kids over the course of a whole school year, that's a lot of instructional support that has been lost to those kids. And when they go back in the room from Tier 2 to go back into the Tier 1 environment and they're still struggling, they're going to consistently, slowly, gradually fall behind further and further and further, and it's going to manifest other situations. So I just want this board to be very, very cognizant that we have to make sure that well, let me say this. As a board member, I need to be cognizant, because I can only govern myself, that we pay attention to what's being said to us, and that when we have supports that need to be laid out, that we take it into consideration. We don't have an infinite amount of money, but at the same time, we have supports in place that unfortunately cannot function 100% of the times for whatever reason. And we cannot expect that the staff, the teachers, can do more and do more and do more without additional support or resources. So I want to continue to address this from a K-3 perspective, but also with the understanding those that are in the third grade going through the high school, we continue to look at how do we continue to support them with the understanding this is going to be a phase where all those kids phase out, but we need to also benchmark where we started for the K-3 supports and then watch them develop through the years, and then you'll be able to benchmark between those two segments. I think we're in a good place. I really like the culture and structural priorities that you're placing, but more importantly, I like the way that you're giving us the good, the bad, and the ugly from your perspective, where you see that there's room for improvement for us, and that when it's time for you to come to us and ask for more supports and for those improvements through our superintendent, that myself as a board member, that I'm listening loud and clear for those pleas for help. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Before I go to Mr. Wollaston, just if I could circle back to, is there anything for the first time, anybody online who, Mr. Madison or Ms. Taylor?
I see Mr. Madison's hand. I think I saw his hand.
Yeah.
Mr. Madison?
Taylor had her hand up first, actually.
I don't see Ms. Taylor, but Ms. Taylor did have her hand. Yes.
So Mr. Madison and then Ms. Taylor.
Yeah, thank you. Can we go back to the slides for just 1 second? To the slide before the big one with the circle of pictures that says what worked? Just want to make sure I understand how to read that. It's the one with the attendance. About 5 slides back. We have 90% on the left and 23% on the right. I didn't quite understand how to read it. Right, one more, keep going backwards. Yep, right there. So I see it's 90% one on the left, and I see like Windsor rated with what, 19%, 23% over on the left.
Yep.
How do I read that?
So it's a 90%, that's a line. So everything above 90, that was our, like 2021, 2022, each year chronic absenteeism. It was above 90%. What you're looking at on the right, that's index. That's the rate of chronic absenteeism.
Not connecting the dots though. So Windsor said, it says 23.3% on the right.
Yep. I don't
How does
understand.
that relate to 90% on the left? Indexing against what?
So it's a 23. Oh, so I think if I'm reading this correctly, I think maybe it's a percent sign. That's what is throwing us off. Because the percent, if you look at the scale, the index is not a percent.
That's fair. What is it indexing?
Yeah, so that's from Ed site, so I'll go back to Ed site and see what it's, what's indexing against, I guess.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. And then, but if I understand the left side, it's simply that, you know, on any given day on average, what, 7% of the schools out?
Yes, that's exactly what it is by school. So I'll get, the right side is from Ed site, so I'll get that from Ed site.
Perfect, thank you. And just, I want to put a plug in for not using too much technology. Awesome change. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Taylor, you can hear me?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so just your professional opinion, Dr. Haiti. Do you think that the learning loss, now, okay, I'll start off with saying this. We know that there was a lot of learning to COVID, but when we're thinking about K to 3, these kids weren't even in school. So do you think it would, when you're thinking about the kids that we're talking about right now, right, that level of children who we're seeing it happening again, do you think it's due to the fact of the delay in educational opportunities earlier? Because if a child is not going to school until kindergarten, there's been a few years of gap for certain children, right? Some students, some children had an opportunity to go to a private daycare. Some students had preschool opportunities, whatever the case may be. But not everybody's on the same playing field. So in your professional opinion, that we're seeing this continuously happen, why is that?
So even though our K-3 kids were not in school at the time, even the early years services, like birth to 3, a lot of these services were affected by COVID. So we are seeing some kids that could have been picked up by birth to 3 if it wasn't for COVID and parents were not feeling comfortable going out, or if, I think the services, correct me if I'm wrong, Mary, the services were kind of stopped for a while during COVID. So some of these kids were not identified, they were not given, services they would have otherwise. So I do think, even though they were not actually in school, some of them that were actually born we're still seeing that effect of COVID on them.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for saying that.
Yeah.
That's it.
Mr. Wollaston?
Yes, I did have a few questions. Just some of them are just opinion, and they're pretty broad, so they're not tough questions at all. The first one is I was a little foggy still on the explanation of the district mandate that you mentioned for testing. Could you explain that first?
For Dibbles?
Yeah, no, I think you mentioned iReady. You mentioned
Alliance?
there's
Yep. So Alliance
Oh,
districts.
is that what it is?
Yep.
It's in a, okay.
Yes. So because we're an Alliance district, so we have monitoring meetings. We have a beginning of the year, mid-year, and end of year meeting. And during those meetings, we're required to have an assessment that is approved by the state to report on. So that is iReady. That's why we have iReady 3 times a year.
Okay. And I mean, you probably couldn't answer on the spot, but how much does that cost us? It comes.
Oh, iReady?
Yeah, all right. Could that be something that we get in the email? I don't want to have to
I don't know exactly, but I can definitely look it up.
And that's an Alliance district requirement. Yeah. And my next question is there a space? I kind of want to know your opinion on the testing or the effectiveness or the quality of the testing. Is there a space for you guys to talk about how you feel about the test or changes that you think should be made on the test? Or do you pretty much have to just use something that's approved by the state and then go from there?
Are you talking about our testing or SBAC? State testing or internal testing?
State testing, Alliance District required testing.
So we're not required to use iReady. We can use iReady, STAR, or MAP. We're actually, conversations have started on how aligned iReady is to SBAC, because we're seeing numbers like 71 and 72%. So iReady is telling us that 72% of our kids, for example, are at or above grade level. But then they take SBAC and it's not the same. So we started conversation around, is iReady really aligned to SBAC or not? And so we're going to look into, we used to use STAR.
Okay.
We did not feel like that it was aligned either.
Yeah.
And we really just not have a lot of options. There's just 3 assessments that we can really, because they have to be research-based, they have to be criteria referenced, they have specific things that we have to follow. So we're kind of seeing how aligned is that to SBAC. I personally have a really hard time feeling like, and that's going to be the message for next year. We want teachers to focus on teaching grade level standards and teaching kids to think critically, regardless of that assessment. It's really hard to, obviously, we don't want teachers to teach to a test, and we don't want teachers to just be so focused on their numbers on a test. I feel like we really need, that's the shift that we need to have, is for teachers to really be focused on developing these critical thinking skills for our kids, so that regardless of what test they take or what question they have in front of them, they're able to use some critical thinking skills to determine the answer. So, that's kind of like why we want to move towards the whole critical thinking aspect of teaching. So iReady is $87,506.
Is that per exam or just for the year?
That's for the entire year. That includes our resource for the teachers, and it includes the iReady MyPath for math that I talked about, which is our Tier 2 program for math.
Okay. Could I just get an email on how much we spend on just the state required testing in general? You just, yeah. It doesn't have to be soon.
That's a hard one.
It doesn't have to be. I just want to know. I just want to know how much. Yeah. It doesn't have to be like next week. Whenever you guys. All right. I don't want to kill you. I'm not trying to kill anybody.
No hands, right? Okay, no hands. No hands.
Any other questions?
Wait, Ms. Taylor's up.
Ms. Taylor, do you have another
Anna?
question?
Your name popped up.
No, I just stopped sharing the screen.
Oh, okay.
I had a question about Dibbles, and I know you mentioned it's in the report here, only at-risk students for grade 3 take Dibbles. Why don't we, again, we were talking about the critical nature of 3rd grade, why don't we do a test at the end of the year for all students?
Just because of exactly what we were just talking about. 3rd grade is a year where they have a lot of testing, so.
Okay, so they're over,
adding
okay, so
Dibbles,
they max,
yes.
you feel that, I know we're not necessarily don't want to be test happy, and so you feel with the other test results where, the state doesn't require this second test for 3rd grade.
No.
So we're comfortable
Yes,
with the other assessments between required assessments and general assessments. We're comfortable with that.
And I think between iReady and between our internal, like, teacher-created assessment, running records, everything else teachers do, I think it gives them a good idea. Like, we did not feel like we need to do a whole grade-wide assessment in the spring.
One of your slides, you talked about school-to-home connections, and I know we've been doing home visits. Is there money for home visits for next year?
We do have in our Hartford Foundation grant, we do have, I don't know exactly how much, but we do have money allocated for home visits.
Okay.
Usually it's around 5,000. That's what we've been doing. How much we usually spend.
I want to thank you for the work that's been done, a lot of work, and I agree with you. We need to honor and celebrate our successes. And yes, there was always things to work on, but the fact that many of those scores are now going back to pre-COVID. And just yesterday, I think it was in the Hartford Courant, they talked about, learning loss, which we know summer slide gets into, and Ms. Cantor's statements about, reaching students in the summer and what parents need to do. I don't know if there's more support we can do to our PTOs. And I'm looking to our head of family resources and SEL here. As I mentioned, Dr. Mallory, how do we do better at reaching at-risk students, and how do we do better at reaching into the community during the summer, and what other supports we can do with the town. We know the town has tutoring at the Wilson Library. How can we better coordinate with our students and make sure? And it's wonderful. I know Loomis students go into our schools, and Windsor High School students come into our elementary schools. And I think that idea of one of our goals on Portrait of a Graduate of being socially responsible, and what better than being socially responsible within Windsor Public Schools. So again, I do want to applaud you and Dr. Hill and everyone for the work that's being done, where we're really digging into the numbers. We're looking at teachers, all their kids, what are they doing? And the idea of comparing teachers to help one another, but also, as you said, hold the accountability part as well. So I thank you very much, and the staff of Windsor Public Schools.
And I do want to publicly acknowledge our curriculum directors, Michelle Williams and Bonnie Feynman. They do a lot of work with that's our team. The backbone of our team was our instructional coaches and supervisors at the high school. We also, this year, we have a trusted teachers team. So that's a team of teachers from across the district. Every single building is represented. And those are our high-performing teachers who were able to, over the years, we looked at their data and were able to move a significant amount of their students. So we have that team that we meet with on a regular basis, and that was part of the reflections that we've done at the end of the year. We met with our trusted teachers team. We heard their feedback. They're kind of like spokesperson to all their colleagues. We heard their feedback. We've taken a lot of their ideas and, things that they feel like we need to focus on for next year. And that's kind of like what's driving our work for next year. So I want to also thank all our trusted teachers team and every single teacher in our district.
Thank you. I agree. I think you're up for number two, your next
So
part.
I would like to call Bonnie Feynman and Michelle Williams up to share some of our PDEC work on our teacher evaluation system.
Thank you for having us again tonight. And I'll kick it off. Michelle and I will be sharing information about the new updated teacher evaluation and support plan, focusing mostly tonight on the differences between the new plan and what is currently in place. But we will give a little bit of background information as well. So as we get started, just want to share that the state mandated a change. So that it was the state that asked us to revisit our plan and provided us with a model plan to work from, and we went from there. Our district, just like every other district, is required to have what's called a PDEC committee, which is the Professional Development and Evaluation Committee. It's a group of professionals from the district who get together to make some of the decisions surrounding professional learning and the evaluation process. So our PDEC met monthly this entire year, learning about the new sort of non-negotiables from the state, waiting for getting trained. So a lot of us got trained, and waiting for the new model plan to arrive so that we can make some decisions about what Windsor's plan would look like. So I just wanted to say that preemptively so you understand we weren't making changes for the sake of making them. We were making changes because we were mandated to do this by the state, and it was done collectively. The committee consists of administrators, teachers, support staff, PSES members, para-educators, et cetera. So it's a pretty diverse team with representation from every building. In case you hear us talk about it, you might hear us talk about something called Vector, which is our management system that will house all of our evaluations and all of the forms that are required through the evaluation process. So Vector is not the plan, it is the digital warehouse that contains everything that we need to evaluate and support our staff. And just finally, the plan that the state put out, it does apply to both administrators, or it says leaders, so administrators and certified staff. The plan is not designed for paraeducators or non-certified staff. So in making the changes and looking at the model plan, those were the two groups that we needed to have in mind as we work through a year of this. Some quick highlights about the new evaluation support plan, and then I'm going to hand off to Michelle for the important stuff, which are the main differences. The new plan is guided by some core principles. The main one was the state deciding they need to simplify the process, the evaluation and support process. The previous one that we've been working on for many years now, probably 10 years, if I remember correctly, it had many steps. There was a ton of paperwork, and it could seem quite convoluted. So they really tried to simplify this process now by having a reduced number of forms, and the processes are really outlined much better, and in some cases are quicker. The focus is on teacher growth, teacher development, and teacher agency. So what Michelle will talk about, one of the main changes, is not a punitive system. This is designed for evaluators like us who are administrators to help support staff and help them grow as educators. It's not about punishment or consequences in that way. It is for us to help them. And there's a big emphasis on that in the new plan. There's also a large emphasis on administrators providing really good feedback and doing so in a timely manner so that people can, educators can hone their craft and grow and develop. So it's heavily dependent on administrators having the capacity to provide actionable, timely feedback. And then the last thing really about the plan, which is not that different, but just background, is that it's it's a continuous process all year long. So it's not something that we just visit once a year or twice a year. There are 3 major checkpoints during the year, but in between those, there's also work that gets done in terms of professional learning and coaching and instructional support. So it is all these things simplified, focused on teacher growth and agency, focused on feedback, people getting the feedback that they need, and really strongly reliant on the administrators being able to give really good feedback. Am I doing processes? Yeah. No. Oh, no. I'm going to hand off to my wonderful colleague, Michelle.
Good evening. So another one of our huge changes is the number of processes that we as leaders are going to be involved in with our teachers in doing their observations. So in the past, there were 4 different processes. So if you were new to the profession, you were in one process. If you were new to Windsor, you were in another process. If you were in years 3 and 4, you were in one process. If you were tenured, you were in possibly 3 different processes, right? So there were a lot of different processes to manage. And I can tell you this because I had this all up on my chart, like this person's in this one, and this one, and this one. So now we just have 2 processes. It's cohort 1. So if you're new to the profession or new to Windsor, you will have 3 observations with a pre and a post. And so, like I said, that was different. The other processes, you could have had 3 observations pre and post, or you could have just had 1 observation pre and post. So that's, everyone is cohort 1, new to profession, 3 observations with a pre and post. Cohort 2, you have to successfully complete cohort 1. And then in that process, you will have 2 observations with a post. A pre is optional. You do not have to have a pre. So that is a significant change. As Bonnie had mentioned, like the processes and paperwork. So that's a reduction in paperwork just in having 2 cohorts versus the 5 that we had previously. Right, so you want to go on to the timelines?
Yep, something that was added to that I think was really helpful, will be helpful for me as someone who's pretty structured and type A in many ways. There are the addition of timelines in this new plan. So, and I believe the board received a copy, yes, of our plan. So you will see timelines for administrators to provide feedback. So now administrators have 5 days to provide verbal feedback, 10 days to provide written feedback. There are also explicit timelines if a teacher needs support and is on a support plan. There are now very specific timelines of how long those support plans last. And there is now a timeline for disputes. So if the evaluator provides feedback and the teacher, certified staff member, doesn't agree with the feedback, they are allowed to dispute it. The process is the same, but what we were missing before was a timeline. So now the teacher, or I'm sorry, certified staff member has 10 days from the time of receiving feedback to notify the evaluator of a dispute. The difference is in the past, we could have staff who didn't agree with the feedback we gave them, and we did not know sometimes until the very end of the year when they would not sign their forms and say, I didn't agree with what you wrote. Now, 7 months, 8 months have gone by, and there's nothing we can do. So these timelines will eliminate, hopefully, or reduce those number of problems. Okay, and handing it back to Michelle for the main differences.
Yeah, so one of the main differences of this evaluation system is that there is no numeric evaluation, no numeric rating at the end, right? So, or even in the observation itself. So teachers were, they would sit there and listen to the whole spiel that the administrator was given, but they really wanted to know, am I effective or exemplary or below standard or, what they didn't. The feedback, they weren't really, I don't want to say they weren't really interested, that's not what I'm going to say, but they were really wanting to hear what their overall rating was going to be. So now we don't have that rating piece and we can really focus on the feedback. Dr. Hill is really persistent with the leaders in your feedback is what's going to make the difference, right? And we know that feedback, helping our teachers improve, giving them areas of growth, giving them accommodations of what they're doing well, pushing them forward, pushing them to, share with their colleagues, that we want to give them that feedback. We want to support our teachers. So we don't want them focused on a rating or a number, which I think in our previous plan, a lot of our teachers, I can remember sitting in a meeting, the teacher would be like, when I'm finished, she's like, okay, so am I a 3 or am I 4? I'm like, okay, so this is what I want you to understand and hear, my feedback to you. So I think that's going to be that is huge. The other thing that is really a change is there's a single point competency on the rating, right? So we've had these different variations with, I think I mentioned it's below standard. I can't remember that second one. Developing, effective, and then exemplary, right? So we're looking at a single point now. We don't have 4 things to look at. We're looking at a single point, and we're giving them feedback around that single point, right? So it almost feels like you met it or you didn't meet it, but it's really feedback around that single point in areas within that point that you may have done well, in areas that you need to show some growth, right? So I think that's going to be a change for leaders in giving feedback, and then as well a change for teachers in receiving their feedback, right? Because they're going to, they're happy about not having a rating, quite honestly, but that feedback piece is what we want them to take back and go to the classroom, work with whomever they need to work with, and then bring it back into the classroom. And then the next time we go in, we want to see that feedback has been received and that they are trying those new resources or strategies that we've shared with them. Okay? And now our teachers can create multi-year goals. So they've had a goal, it was for 1 year, they worked on it from September to May. And then the next year, they created new goals. Now you can say, you know what, this goal is going to take me a couple of years to achieve, and they have to outline it for you. And I think that is having set in a lot of goal setting meetings when teachers did actually at times repeat a goal because they didn't feel like they met the goal, right, to their standard, or they wanted to learn more. So now they have the opportunity to create a multi-year goal, so 1, 2, or 3 year goal. Another thing that is a change that's written is that they can, and I say written because I know in my former building they did this, but group goals. So a group of teachers can work on the same goal. They're still accountable. They are held accountable for their own data and their own information, but they can work together as a cohort, as a group, on their goals. So I think that provides, we want our teachers working together, not in isolation, right? So we want them to be able to work with each other, to feed off of each other, especially like when I think about like the math department at the high school, a lot of them are working on this new instructional model around building thinking classrooms. That's a great goal for them to work on together. We have teachers at the elementary level that will be implementing bookworms if they wanted to do something around that. So then they have an opportunity to work together, meet together, and work on a goal. And Bonnie did a really good job talking about the specific processes and the timelines for support. I think our team, I'm going to say our team spent a lot of time on making sure that our processes for support really provide support for our teachers and it doesn't feel punitive, right? So we don't want it to be punitive. We want to let you know that we're here to give you support. So there's different levels, right? So obviously as an administrator, you're providing support before you need to put it on paper, right? But there are times when you have to you have to document it, you have to put it on paper. So we went back and forth around what's a reasonable timeline. I know at one time I was like, I think we need more time at this level rather than at this level. So we had really deep conversations, and we wanted administrators to really understand that you have to adhere by these timelines. So you have to make sure you're doing your checkpoints, right? Because we're providing support. If we're not adhering and checking to it, then how are our teachers feeling like we're really supporting them? Just keeping it really real. I think our team really spent time on that. And the other thing that I will give credit to Bonnie and Katrina with is that in our other plan, we had support plans or support plan documents, and we could never really find them. So everybody was kind of creating their own. When they had to do a support plan, they would like, hey, Michelle, do you have that? So we're calling other leaders. We have it now right in our document. So it's linked in our document. We have an appendix of them. So there's no confusion for administrators or leaders or teachers who are even involved in the process. So I think we did a really good job this year.
Yeah, before we take questions, I just want to thank Dr. Paul Pierce. He was not able to make it tonight.
Yeah, that's right.
But Michelle and I had the pleasure of co-facilitating or together facilitating the committee with him. He's a tremendous asset to the district. He was wonderful to work with, and he did a ton of work around this entire project and the whole team. This was I've been on PDEC for my duration of my time here. This was certainly the most high-functioning PDEC that we've had in terms of consistency of attendance, commitment, and the feedback and discussions. We had excellent discussions as a group, and it made the work, this could be tedious work, but it made the work really enjoyable. So thank you to the staff who came to all those meetings, which were monthly, and they were 2 hours or sometimes longer per meeting.
And leaders had to go to a 3-day training outside of this, so just so you know, to understand the process. So all leaders, I created a document, I sent them the information where all the trainings were for within the state, and then they had to put on the document so Dr. Haiti knew when they were going, which training that they were scheduled to go to.
So we're happy to take questions, if you have any.
Thank you. Thank you for the work that's been done. And just looking at the PDAC committee, not only great administrators, but great teachers that I know who were part of this. How was the buy-in? Is PDAC, do you ask teachers if they want to be on it? Does it go to the union even though this is a management tool? How does that work?
So the building leaders actually select within their building, so they have their own process. So like the requirement for that we gave them was there had to be one administrator and was it two teachers? Two teachers on the committee, and then we also had to have special education representation, and we had to have paraeducator representation as well. So that is actually left up to the building. For the paraeducators, we actually worked with the PSES and Danielle Batchelder to identify certain people to ask to be on the committee per school. And then there is where the union, you talked about the union, so the union does have representation. So they have two people, as well as Dr. Pierce is the union co-facilitator. Represents the union as a co-facilitator is what I should be saying, yeah.
Thank you. I know James has his hand up, and Ms. Cantor, I saw you first.
Yes, thank you.
First, then
Thank you,
Mr. Madison.
You asked one of the questions I was wondering, and I just wanted to comment on it. I know how hard a process like this is to do. I've worked on huge processes like this, and you need such good input, and you have to make hard decisions, and it's trying to organize and keep everybody, like streamline everything, so you know exactly where to go. So I think you guys did a great job.
Thanks.
Thank you.
We go to Mr. Madison, then oh boy. Going to go to Mr. Madison and then Mr. Lockhart. Mr. Madison?
Yeah, thank you. If I understand what you're saying, you're getting rid of the rating per se. If you can just run through what the levels used to be on that and what they are now, and the rationale for eliminating that. I know this is an ongoing thing in all HR discussions, but the standard question is, like, if you don't have the rating, how do you deal with the ends of the rating spectrum? In other words, people who are really high performing, and I know that the union set the price, the salaries more than so what happens in the corporate world, but, and then how do you deal with the low end in terms of lack of performance and the fact that you have to tell people before you terminate them that there was a reasonable communication of the underperformance? How do you deal with that without a rating?
You want me to take it?
Go ahead. Okay. Everybody wants to jump in on this. Everybody wants to.
So, okay, Dr. Hill's going to take this.
It's pretty easy. We don't, since the ratings are going to be gone, you're giving them the feedback. So the feedback should be telling them about their performance, right? So, and unlike the corporate world, Mr. Madison, you are not getting rid of any teacher on, that evaluation at the end of that year like that. You will have to find ways to work with them to, hopefully see improvement, but it's definitely a process. And the union would be a part of that process all the way along. And because they are paid by contract, all of them, so the raise is going to be the same for the person with the, not a rating name, but just using terms you understand, the exemplary rating and the person that has needs improvement rating. So their raise per se is not based on their evaluation.
And we have support plans in place to help people.
I said that.
Oh, okay.
Nope.
Anything else, Mr. Madison?
All set, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Lockhart.
Thank you. So I'm glad to see this come to fruition. I was part of this since April 2021 as K first vice president. And then when I became president, myself and the president at the time, Ms. Elizabeth Brown from Waterbury, we were pulled into this council to come up with a new teacher evaluation plan that teachers, quite frankly, did not like, that was derived in 2012. And it came from a level of distrust, and they felt that it was very adversarial, and at times it was very, very subjective rather than objective. I went into this work, I'm not an educator. I openly admitted I'm not an educator. And I went into this work along with Ms. Brown, stating that we are here to support our superintendents and to make sure that he or she within our respective districts have the tools they need to manage the district and to effectively support their staff and to handle any type of issues that may arise from an evaluation process. And we came from a process where when we evaluate the superintendents, the majority of the towns use a rating system. So it was very difficult for me to go into a system where, one, why are we rating teachers? And two, what is the process to provide support? So I was very supportive of the non-rating system based off of what Ms. Williams just said, is because a lot of times you can give great feedback, but all they cared about was that they get exemplary, If they did get exemplary, why didn't I get it? You don't like me. Then it came a bunch of unnecessary grievances. And at the end of the day, the scope of our work was to improve the teacher evaluation process, not just for the teachers, but also for the administrators, and to put onus on each other to provide timely feedback, to spend time with the teacher, and at the same time, you have administrators at times were brand new evaluating teachers that were probably in the profession 25 years. So there was a respect factor that had to be built into that as well. And at times, a lot of the teachers were saying, we feel that we're not being fairly treated. And I just, from my bias, I was just like, okay, that's fine. That's hard for me to understand and believe. But we wanted to make sure that we provided a process that it was not labor intensive on the administrators, because it's very hard under the current process to have an administrator come and visit your room 9-10 times a year and visit every single staff member. But we wanted a process where you're in the classroom or you're somewhere, you're able to give great feedback on the spot with the understanding that you have, I believe, 5 days to provide that verbal, and then you have another 10 network days, 10 school days to provide that feedback in writing. And it had to all be housed in one location so that there was no misunderstanding and everybody was using the same documents and forms and stuff. So it took a lot of back and forth, a lot of pushback openly. Some of the unions were very, very adamant about what they wanted. Myself and Ms. Brown, we represented boards of education across the state, and we had to push back based off the fact that we are responsible to the electorate for the performance of a school district. We're the ones that have to set policy and curriculum. We're the ones that are held responsible and asking for the budgetary considerations. And when there's not any performance or lack of, people are not going to the taxing authority. They're coming to the Board of Education members, and they're coming to our respective superintendent. So when we was talking about the punitive side of it, we didn't want this process to be punitive. We want this to be purely a great working relationship between the administrators and the staff, provide them with that support that they may need, and also provide them with a berth to be able to do what they want to do within their own segment that they would like to go in. Someone may want to leave the classroom and become a math specialist. How do you work with that person to go on that track, for example? So I'm just very happy that this is taking traction here in Windsor. I'm very happy that the PDEX has been working hard on this. I'm looking forward to some of the data this time next year when the council comes together and take a look at the data from all the towns in the state. And what we're hoping to see that a lot of the subjectivity that has been complained about has been erased. And what board members want is that we want highly functioning teachers and administrators being very, very objective with the one thing in mind is teaching, educating our kids and making them better and helping them along the way. And it has to be something that's fruitful for the staff as well. So that's why we came to the consensus of getting a winner of the rating with the understanding that if there's any discipline issues, that process is already in place through contract, through collective bargaining, and that's a superintendent function unless it's brought to us as a grievance. So we like the process as is. I believe it's going to create a lot of opportunities for the teachers, specifically in the town of Windsor, but with the understanding that we had to create a process that was for the whole state of Connecticut that had to be approved by the State Board of Education, and it went through unanimously. So thank you for the work that you've put into this to implement in the town of Windsor.
Okay. Unfortunately, with the TV reception today, we're at a little bit of a loss here. Ms. Taylor, do you have any comments? Just because I know you're remote.
No, I don't know what I could even say in response to what was just said. But James, his hand is up.
Yeah, I saw James, but I know James had one bite at the apple, so I wanted to make sure everybody had a first bite. So, Mr. Madison?
Yeah, I just want to clarify, I'm a fan of not having the ratings. I was just asking for clarification, but don't think that means I'm opposed to them. I've read a whole lot of HR articles, as over the years, even though I'm an engineer, nowhere near as many as Ms. Taylor, of course. But, I've seen the rating controversy come back and forth, but I'm a fan of not having it, as long as there's other mechanisms in place and processes. So I just want to say I'm a fan of it. I was just curious to hear everyone's thoughts on the rationale. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? I want to thank you again for all the work that's been done on this. Again, looking at the PDAC members and knowing you have one of the co-presidents and you have the secretary of the WEA, plus several people who are teachers of the year here, to have that which looks like a collaborative effort. So I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. And before I take my seat, we were talking about reading. Summer reading kickoff is this Saturday, 10 o'clock, Wilson Library. No, I'm sorry, not Wilson. I'm sorry, Windsor Public Schools Library. Yeah, Broad Street.
And Ms. Feynman and I are both on the WLA, Windsor Library Association, so we push those public-private partnerships. Next item is committee reports. I don't know if there's anything further, Mr. Wollaston, you want to add to what you had provided before?
Yeah, just very briefly. The only thing I'll mention is that we were speaking on the feasibility of changing the bylaws or a policy around whether people have to state their address. Only thing that came up from that within committee, when people come and state their address at the audience to visitors table. So the only thing that's come up of that is really just been a decision to further discuss after looking into what surrounding districts do, or even looking at CABE policy and seeing what we could figure out. Aside from that, we did already speak about the extension of the hybrid model, so that's all we got.
Any question for Mr. Wollaston? Move on. Any other? I don't think there's any other committee reports. Other matters, announcements. Board of Ed special meeting next Tuesday, June 25th at 7 p.m. at the LPW boardroom. Next regular Board of Ed meeting is Tuesday, September 17th, 2024, 7 p.m., LPW boardroom. And to go around the room for announcements, I'll start with Mr. King. Anything to add?
Unless I can, I'm saving it for you.
Sure.
Oh, awesome. I just want to thank the voters of Windsor for turning out and letting everybody know that the budget did pass by quite a bit. Thank you very much. And I just want to say a great thank you to everybody that I know worked really hard to make sure that happened, that we don't turn into a town like Enfield or Hartford that are laying off hundreds of teachers at a time that is super critical. And that I think, fortunately, Mr. Panos isn't here tonight, but I think, you talked a lot about the taxpayers and what they would bear, and they clearly have made a resounding effort to say that a few dollars more to support our education system is worth it. Thank you.
Mr. Madison?
Nothing else, thank you.
Mr. Wollaston?
I'd just like to thank every voter that came out today. Truly, we have to be engaged. And it shows, even in this situation, that it's not always the people who come out who speak for the majority, but when the majority doesn't come out, we kind of get left in a tricky situation. We see it across the state in many various towns, but it's not our story here in Windsor today because of voters like you. So thank you, guys.
Ms. Cantor?
Thank you. Just want to tell everybody to enjoy your summer and drive safely and drink lots of liquids this past week, this coming week. It's going to be hot and humid. Just hydrate easy.
Thank you very much. Mr. Wollaston? Is that enough? Anything else? Mr. Lockhart?
Have a good summer. Everyone be safe, and see you in September. Excuse me, August.
That's right, August. Mr. Halleck?
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to first express my condolences to a trooper, a Pelletier's family. I know he was lost in the line of duty a couple weeks back, so I just wanted to acknowledge that. Obviously, I'm a member of law enforcement as well, so we're a family, and I just wanted to acknowledge his.
Thank you for that.
His service. I want to thank our our students and our staff, our teachers and our staff, for a great school year. And I wish them all a great summer. And I'll leave it at that for tonight.
Thank you. Ms. Taylor.
I'm just wishing everyone a safe summer. There are cooling centers throughout the greater Hartford area for those that don't have air conditioning or adequate fans. Also thanking the citizens of Windsor for exercising their right to vote, and for the students. I saw a lot of student engagement. They can't even vote yet, but they were really part of the process. And shout out to Aaron, our valedictorian, and Sky, who wrote amazing articles. When they didn't have to do it, they chose to do it. And so it's great to see our students really leveling up and exercising their freedom of speech. And so with that, have a good night.
Yes, thanks to Dr. Hill and his staff, administrators, teachers, support staff, custodians, everybody that makes this a great school district. To parents, read. Help your students to read. Make sure they are reading. As we said, reading kickoff, Windsor Library coming up this weekend, this Saturday. Have a great summer. I agree with Ms. Cantor. Stay hydrated, everyone. They say when you're already feeling you need something to drink, you're already probably dehydrated. So drink preventively. That's all I have. Looking for a motion? Oh. Uh-oh. Alexis, audience to visitor? Hardly see nobody in the room.
We don't have anyone in it, but do you still want me to read my speech?
I think you could ask if anybody wants to address the board in audience to visitor.
We do not have, there are no attendees in the Zoom application, and there are no questions in the Q&A feature.
Anybody in the boardroom who'd like to address the board? Seeing and hearing none, is it okay to close audience to visitor? Audience to visitor is closed. Now, a motion. Motion made by Mr. Lockhart. Is there a second? Seconded by Ms. Cantor. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Abstention, motion carries 800. We are adjourned at 9:17. Will we just say $15,000 to the town?